The big story this morning, though, is that Everton have agreed a loan deal to sign Jack Grealish from Manchester City, while Tottenham have approached City about signing Savinho. We will get onto that in a moment. But first of all, Grealish, Dan, from an Everton point of view, David Moyes was talking about he was desperate for signings only a few days ago, only a couple of weeks ago. Well, this feels like a real statement signing for Everton.
It does indeed, Matt. And I think David Moyes was so keen on bringing Jack Grealish to the club. And actually, as an Everton fan, yes, they've been wanting signings, but you now look at the attacking options they now have after signing the likes of Tieno Barry. They already had Beto Limon Jai as well. And they've also signed Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who has a creative flair to him as well. So now you look at the attacking force. Once they can officially announce Jack Grealish after agreeing this loan for him, he just adds that bit more of stardust in that attacking flair. And I think when you look at what David Moyes was able to do with that West Ham team a few years ago, with the creative players like Jared Bowen, Lucas Paqueta, Mohamed Kudus, you trust David Moyes to really have these exciting players and hopefully do much better than they were able to do last season.
I think it's going to be about balance. David Moyes will be acutely aware of that. But Njai I love. I think he's a really sparky player on that left-hand side. I think Tieno Barry is going to surprise a few people. I think he's raw, but he showed with Villarreal in La Liga that he's got something about him. He's got that willingness to keep working, to keep running in behind. And with Grealish behind him, potentially supplying the ammunition, I think he could have a really good season. So it's a really positive move, I think, for Grealish, who gets a bit of a reset. I think for City, who wanted a solution to that problem, at least in the short term, and definitely for Everton and their fans.
And I'm really pleased for Jack Grealish himself now getting that move. I mean, we've seen him publish videos on social media this pre-season, just trying to, I think, illustrate how hard he's trying to work to really get back to playing football on a consistent level. And you look at the last two seasons for Manchester City in the Premier League, just 20 Premier League appearances. Numbers not particularly impressive, but that's also not the type of player Jack Grealish is. I mean, we know how instrumental he can be.
This is it. A lot of people would say that the move to Man City just didn't work for Jack Grealish, that he wasn't the kind of player that fitted into this structured Guardiola play, that he was shackled a little bit. The view is generally that he's a bit of a free spirit and he needs to be given a bit of freedom. Do you think David Moyes might give him that kind of freedom?
Well, just on the City move, his medal collection would probably say differently.
Well, yeah.
Started a Champions League final, which he won, part of that treble-winning team. But yeah, I think, again, it's about balance. It's about finding a structure that will allow him to be creative, that will allow not the team to be built around him, but allow the best possible use of his talents. Pep Guardiola, doesn't give out games for free. We know that. We know that there have been some big-name players who've been up and down with him. But the fact that he played in these massive games consistently for City tells you the high regard in which he was held by Guardiola. So the talent is there. As Dan was saying, there's clearly a fire there to go and prove people wrong and get back to that top level. That's a great move for Everton and a great move for him.
And he'll have some, teammates from the England team that he'll be aware of as well, the likes of Jordan Pickford, Jared Branthwaite as well, who you think, he'll go into an environment with David Moyes who, you would expect to just express himself a bit more as well.
Do you think he could be used centrally rather than
absolutely.
on the flank?
I think when you look at the last season he spent at Aston Villa, though, yes, we always see him float into the middle, but he'd often start games on the left, and we did see that at City a little bit, but very much more structured to stick on that left wing, didn't we? And I think that's where you see the best of Jack Grealish, giving him a bit of roaming time between the left and central. I think he'll maybe share that space with Njai. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall can play a bit more advanced as well. But I think what you'll see is just all those attacking players rotate a little bit around Beto, Chumititi as well, who was injured all of last season, predominantly most of last season. So all of a sudden, if you're an Everton fan, you're actually seeing quite a few attacking options where I think as an Everton fan, or not myself, but if I was to imagine being one, it hasn't felt like Everton have had that creative spark a lot in recent years. So I think it's very exciting times.
Right, so we just got the Grealish news, didn't we, just a few minutes ago. Just before that, we also got some other news concerning a Manchester City player, there were reports that Savinho was in talks with Tottenham Hotspur about a potential move there. So they could be losing two wide players, effectively, in a matter of days. This one surprised us a little bit, didn't it, Dan? Because there was a general feeling that Savinho was sort of growing into his role at Manchester City, and maybe there's a bit more to come from him.
Also, I think there's a feeling that Manchester City weren't out there to try and sell Savinho either. I mean, let's not forget, he started 3 of their 4 games in the Club World Cup just a month ago, so clearly still part of Pep Guardiola's plans. But I think it seems that, David Ornstein in The Athletic is reporting that the reported fee that is under discussion is around £43 million, which would mean if that does happen, that City would make a £13 million profit on a player who's only spent a season there. At the end of last season as well, in the last 8 games, he did find minutes hard to come by. And when you also consider Pep Guardiola now has the likes of Oscar Bob back from injury, Omar Mamouche could be used on that left-hand side, as well as all of the other options, you can understand why actually, if Savinho does want to leave, we know in the past, Pep Guardiola has never had an issue with letting players leave, the likes of João Cancelo, Julian Alvarez, we were talking about earlier. He usually lets these players explore those moves, so it sounds like this could be similar.
From a Spurs point of view, does it make a lot of sense when you look at the injury situation? Maddison out for a long time. Kulusevski's not going to be back for a while as well. There's even question marks over Solanke at the moment.
I think he's a phenomenal footballer. I think if you look at his one-on-one ability to break a game open, you look at what he did with Girona a couple of seasons ago. He was a massive part of them qualifying for the Champions League for the first time in their history, and he's still so young. He's got a season under his belt in the Premier League now. For the kind of money we're talking about, it feels like a real bargain to me. The bit that's missing at the moment, and that will be interesting to find out in the fullness of time, how much of a push was there from him and his camp to explore something else? Because if he looks around him and looks at the wide options they have and thinks, I might be the odd man out here over the course of the season, maybe that's an attractive move. So if they can do it, very, very positive for Spurs, I think.
I think also when you look at Spurs and you look at the current options they have, Mohamed Kudus, Brennan Johnson, great options. But you also have to consider Heung-min Son has just left the club as well. And actually, when you look at minutes played and where those players have predominantly played in the last season or so, both of those players, we can see there actually Savinho, Manchester City, has played on both flanks, which I think gives Thomas Frank a bit more flexibility. And then when you look at the likes of Mohamed Kudus, Brennan Johnson as well, Brennan Johnson played predominantly on the right-hand side last season, and he was a great goal scorer for Ange Postecoglou then too. Mohamed Kudus, as you can see there, a bit more across, absolutely, across those attacking positions. But I think with Savinho, he's more of an out-and-out winger, can play both flanks and gives much more flexibility to what Thomas Frank can do. I think you saw that a little bit at Brentford as well, with how flexible those attacking players were.
I think it's a really important point here in general when we talk about these players. There will be coaches who will have very specific tactical requirements of a player, but you're going to get a lot of rotation. You're going to get a lot of fluidity in a lot of these forward lines. And if you've got Kudus and Savinho in a line like that with some of the quality they have, Kulusevski when he's back, that gives you a lot of scope to combine. And even we were talking about Everton, Grealish and Jai, Barry, that gives you a bit of scope to rotate as well.
Okay.